Right guys, welcome to another video. This video, I've come down to my local club lake for a 36-hour session, so a bit of a luxury for me, a little bit longer than a normal 24 or day session or an overnighter. You know, I've actually managed to get 2 days and a night, so yeah, I'm happy to have a bit of time on the bank. And the main purpose of this session really is to talk to you guys about choosing the right spot for your carp fishing. I recently got a comment on a video about choosing spots, and somebody said, you know, why don't you show the spots where you're fishing on your sessions? And I explained that I didn't really want to give away the exact spots on the particular lakes because obviously I might ruin it for people who are fishing those spots, and also ruin it for myself, you know. So I like to keep my personal spots to myself, and you know, hopefully anyone else who uses those spots, I'm not sort of ruining it for them as well. But this video is going to be about choosing spots in general, you know, and kind of how I approach a lake and sort of decide where to fish based on what I see, and kind of if I haven't seen anything, you know, choosing a spot based on my knowledge of kind of carp behaviour and where they like to hang out at certain times of the year. So yeah, we've come down, like I say, for a 36-hour session. I'm going to, a bit later on, or maybe tomorrow, talk to you about choosing spots. But for now, I've got the rods out. I've got 2 out in open water on my normal sort of with the pool rig pop-ups, and another one fishing in the margin on my blowback rig, tipped with a bit of fake corn, with a few bits of corn scattered around it. I've got a video coming out soon about how I sort of treat my corn to make it extra attractive, so keep an eye out on the channel for that. And that, you know, that rod's just along my margin where I've had quite a few fish before, so can't really go wrong if you've caught fish in an area before. It gives you confidence. So yeah, I've got my rods out, got my house up, as you can see behind me, and we're just coming into the evening now. It's about 4:30, but as we're in October, it gets dark around about 6, so it's definitely going to be winter before too long. Nice and autumnal at the moment. We've had quite a lot of sunshine. All the trees have gone nice and brown, and there's leaves on the ground, and it's absolutely gorgeous. Hopefully it's a good time of year for a big fish or two, so you never know. There's always a chance while the rods are in the water. So I'm going to get a brew on and maybe think about some dinner, and I'll update you guys before I go to bed, and obviously I'll show you a fish if I catch one. And then, like I said, we'll speak tomorrow about spot choices and how you can hopefully choose the right spot on your lakes to catch more fish for you. Well, morning guys, it's the morning after the night before. Apologies I didn't get to update you before the evening last night, as I said I was going to, but it was just, you know, really quiet, and it actually got dark quite quickly and kind of caught me by surprise, and you know, there wasn't a lot to talk to you about, so I didn't see the point in sort of telling you how miserable I was. But yeah, quiet night really. Surprisingly the wind didn't pick up like it was supposed to on the forecast. I was expecting a bit more, you know, a bit more of a lively night, but it was actually really quiet, and there was a little bit of fog overnight. There was the odd fish kind of crashing out in the open water out here, but none of them seem to be really sort of feeding hard. You know, there's probably the odd patch of bubbles coming up, but not enough for, you know, some action, unfortunately. But what I'm going to do now is talk you through my approach to choosing the right spot for your carp fishing. I think it's very important, you know, even if you've got a good swim, you've still got to pick the right spots within the swim to maximise the chances of catching fish. And I think, you know, it's the difference between a good angler and a brilliant angler is one that can pick the spots, you know, where the fish are most likely to be hanging out and where they're most likely to feed. So yeah, I'll show you a little bit of the lake and how it's looking this morning, and then we'll get into my way of looking at choosing spots, and hopefully there'll be a couple of hints and tips in there that will help you put more fish on the bank. Well guys, as promised, I thought I'd chat to you guys a little bit about how I go about choosing spots when I get into my swim. I like to categorise them into different types of spot really. Firstly, you've got patrol routes, so that can be margins, it can be island margins. You know, don't forget an island is similar to your sort of near bank margin. It's still a margin, it's just out in the lake. Fish like to use these as kind of roadways to patrol up and down looking for food, and they like to have, you know, the bank as a bit of safety, you know, so they kind of use that as a wall, if you like, to hug up against for a bit of protection. Also, patrol routes can be gravel bars out in the lake, so if you've got a raised gravel bar, fish can use that as a roadway to patrol along. It's just a natural line in the lake that the fish will follow. Also, you know, things like weed beds, silty gullies in winter especially, the fish seem to patrol through these gullies looking for the natural food such as bloodworm and things that lives in the silt at the bottom of the gullies. So yeah, anywhere where you've got a natural line in the lake, such as a margin, as I've said, or a gully or a gravel bar, that's a patrol route, and the fish will look to move up and down there looking for food. So I always try and think, where's the patrol route going to be in the lake? Sometimes you might have two islands, and you've got to try and work out the route the fish are going to take between those two islands, because you know, you can be pretty sure that they are going to visit the islands, but they've somehow got to get between the two, and sometimes finding an open water spot where the fish are going to pass over can be just as good as actually fishing up to an island. And actually things like islands and margins can be quite pressured, and if you can find an open water spot where the fish patrol, that can be a really good area to try. The next type of spot that I like to look for is cover. What I mean by this, not necessarily, you know, cover that the fish actually get into. That's a later type of spot that I'll talk about. But I mean cover as in overhead cover. So if you've got overhanging trees in your lake, or perhaps lily pads or something on the surface of the lake, even an aerator. In some lakes you get aerators on the surface, and the fish like to sit underneath because they feel protected from, you know, predators from above. It can give them shade in the summer if it's particularly hot, and natural food will fall out of trees and things into the water, so the fish will be waiting there to pick up anything that falls down. So overhead cover is another type of spot that I like to look for, particularly in the summer. You know, when it's really high pressure, the fish will sometimes sit up under the surface, under the overhanging trees, just where they feel comfortable. So it's worth looking, particularly in hot weather, for these sorts of spots. Next type of spot, briefly touched on a second ago, is the type of cover that fish can get into, such as snags. So you might have tree roots sticking out around the margins of your lake. You might have a fallen tree that's actually in the water and the fish are living in amongst the branches, feeling safe and picking up any natural food. Also you've got weed beds where fish can sort of patrol through the holes in the weed, and they like to sit in there and get the oxygen in the daytime, particularly in the hot weather. But at night they tend to move out of weedy areas as the weed starts to take in the oxygen from the water. So I'd only really fish a weedy spot during the day in the summer really. Other types of snags, you might have reeds, and just generally any sort of structure in the lake that the fish might like to sort of hide in and around. So you know, it's worth learning the topography of your lake and seeing what's out there and finding anywhere that you think that the fish might particularly hold up. Moving on to my next type of spot that I like to choose, and that is a holding area. Now don't be confused, I don't mean kind of like snags like I was just talking about. What I actually mean is an area of the lake where the fish feel safe and comfortable, particularly something like a corner of a lake where they've got two margins meeting in the corner, and the fish can sort of back up into a corner if you like and feel protected, and they can sort of look out for danger, particularly on pressured waters. You know, I think corners are quite often neglected. Everyone's sort of looking for, you know, islands and open water spots, but a corner of the lake can be just as good and usually quite quiet and safe for the fish. Other sorts of holding areas, you might have a deep depression out in the middle of a lake, particularly on busy lakes again, where the fish are pressured. They'll tend to head to the middle and huddle together, and perhaps in the winter especially find a deeper hole to sit in where there might be some natural food in the silt or something like that. So again, it's worth getting out the marker rod and finding these sorts of areas. And every lake is different. You know, it's important to remember that fish are all different and every lake is different, and so you can never sort of fish one type of spot on one lake and then be successful on that same type of spot on another lake, although it's definitely worth trying every type of spot until you work out what the fish in your lake like. I found on this lake here, up until now, the fish seem to really like the margins, and everyone that I spoke to said most of their fish seem to come out of the margins. So that's where I've been fishing most of the time and I've had most of my fish. But as it's now the autumn and it's cooling off, I think they're going to start moving out into the open water, so I have started looking for some open water spots. There's a few nice sort of silty depressions and a little gravel spot out there as well, which could be, you know, a bit of a feeding zone for them. And I've also just been watching the water. You know, that's one of the most important things you can do. If you've got an open lake with no features that you can think of, but you always see fish showing in a certain spot, then there could very well be something out there like a clay spot, or, you know, a bit of gravel or a bit of silt or something just a bit different to everywhere else that the fish really seem to home in on. So the most important thing is observation, but hopefully some of the ideas that I've just been through with you will help you sort of choosing spots for your own fishing and in your own lakes. I don't want to ramble on too much because it's such a big subject, but basically I'll sort of, you know, turn up at a lake, have a walk around, and if I don't see anything, then start looking at some of these types of spots where I think the fish are likely to be. You know, I'll never just turn up and cast out blind. I'll always have a bit of an educated guess at where I think the fish are going to turn up, and then as I watch the water during a session, I can maybe make a change if I see the fish elsewhere. So that's about it really. If anyone else has got any ideas about the sort of spots we should be looking for, I'd love to hear down below in the comments. You know, we're all learning, you never stop learning with carp fishing, and if we can help each other out, then perhaps you know, we'll be one step closer to working out what goes on under the water. So yeah, this session unfortunately has been a bit quiet. I may well have a move in a bit. I've got the rest of today, so the lake's gone a bit quieter now. There's less people on. I think there was about 7 people on last night, which is crazy busy for here, but it has been shut for a few weeks, so everyone's obviously keen to get out, as I was. But yeah, now all those people have gone home, I think I might pop round to one of my favourite margin spots just round the other side and spend the rest of the day down there, and hopefully I can winkle one out before we go. So if I do catch one, I'll show you that, but if not, thanks very much for watching. Remember to subscribe and keep an eye out for the next video. Alright, cheers guys, see you soon.